Alright, hey guys, so that's Deviant ONE you just heard in the intro. One of these days I'm going to figure out how to hack away at a keyboard properly, but until then I guess you're just going to have to deal with me. So I'm going to talk a lot. I'm not going to play this thing so much. I'll do that in a different video. For this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top left and I'm going to work my way on down to the bottom right. And we're going to talk about all the features and all it does, and I'm hopefully not going to forget anything, and I'm hopefully going to make this kind of short and concise. But there's a lot of features, a lot of things to get through. Anyway, without further ado, let's just get into the features. And so we're going to start with page 1. So Deviant ONE has 2 pages. I know. It wouldn't have been good if I just left it with 1 page. And so we have drums on the first page and cymbals on the second page. Of these pages, we have the option to switch from internal or user, and we have that on both pages. So you can see that. And we have these circles up here, and these are mutes. So if I press this, you don't hear any sound. That's because it's muted right now. And now you can hear it. So we move down, we can see there's a drop-down menu here. This is an easy, quick way of just selecting a different kit. Just like in Deviant drums, it won't select any snares for you. It only selects the kick drum and the toms. So your snare stays put. So we got clear user and mute user. If I go and I switch to page 1 user, we see that we have different graphics here. These are drag and drop panels right here. So I could take this finder and I could just drag in a sample and I can load it in. Okay, and I can click this and I hear the sample that is loaded here. And if I click this small play button, I can hear that sample, right? This is a mute, so all the squares down here are mutes. And so we know this is mute, this is play, this must be get rid of the okay, and so I mentioned that because that's what is going on here. And we'll just load in a few samples. We'll just drop them in and we'll hit this. And it says, really? Clear all user samples? Yeah, clear them. And so there's a dialog box that comes up and says, hey, are you sure you want to do that? And I put that in there because one time I did that and I was not sure I wanted to do that. And it occurred to me that a dialog box would be really nice for that. You can mute user also. And if I click this, you see that all these user zones are now muted as well. We can still come up here and see that that happens up here. And actually, yeah, you can load samples in here too. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So we have 2 tune knobs, and that's because we need to, because we have a top panel and a bottom panel. And so we have a tune for the top and a tune for the bottom. We can obviously tune that. We're going to need to be able to tune things in accordance with each other. If we move on down, we can see that there's a balance knob, and the balance switches the volume between the top and bottom, respectively. So this is just straight up right now. That means that they're both at 50%, or they're both at 100%. Depends on how you want to look at it. So if I move the balance this way, we're only going to hear the top drum. If I move the balance this way, we're only going to hear the bottom sample that's loaded. And I can play that for you. Okay, and obviously you can just sit around and blend to your heart's content. We have tilt, so the higher you go with this, the more snappy and trebly your sample will be, and the more bass response it won't have. And the adverse is true if you go this way, you'll have more bass and less treble. I'll show you. Okay, let me turn that up. You also have saturation. Just like in Deviant drums, this is volume compensated, so you can turn this up without getting additional volume. And we also have size. If you're a size queen. Right, so let's check out the trig knob. Because these are one-shots and because the intended usage initially was that I wanted to trigger samples only with varying degrees of velocity when they triggered, kind of like a gate, or kind of like if I was using, say, slate trigger to trigger a sample, and it would only trigger on the hard hits. Those of you who have used slate trigger know what I'm talking about. So the premise is the same, and if I turn this knob up to 98, and you can see I'm on logic here, it's going to show you my velocities here. And so I'm just kicking around about 20, 30, 40, somewhere in there. But I have the trig knob turned up to 98. So it's not going to trigger anything, right? So this is your gate parameter essentially. And if I turn this down to 18, okay, now we can hear it. So if you set it to 126, only the hardest possible velocity will trigger. Anything under that is a no-go. One other thing about the trig knob is that you have the light right under it, and this will tell you if you're playing that key, but it's not coming through because your value is too high. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I think it makes sense. Moving on down, obviously this is a pan fader, and it says that. It says pan right there. That's how you know. This is a volume fader. Obviously, you saw me use it a little while ago. You got mute, you got solo, and you have mapping possibilities here. So right now, the kick is mapped to C1, but if I wanted to, I could click the number and letter and drag, and you can see that denoted here on the keyboard, the light up keyboard. Or if you're on a control, then complete control by Native Instruments, you'll see the light bar light up as well. But if I don't want it here, I can always use the learn feature, and I can just put it wherever I want. So I click learn, hit the key, and now it's there, right? You also have the ability to do a second learn. So in this case, we've done one here and one here. So let's move on. We have sequential outputs. At home, I have it set up, but I'm at the studio right now, and I guess I just haven't set up sequential outputs in the studio area. So shame on me. Okay, but that is an ability that you have. Kind of overkill for a one-shot instrument, but hey, why not? Okay, and here's where the money is, right here. So we have these 6 modifier buttons. We have humanize, filter, velocity. This is a filter tracker, velocity tracker, distortion, reverb, and octave down. Now, obviously, octave down and reverb and even distortion on a kick drum don't make a whole lot of sense, but on some of the other stuff it does. And if you're going to load in your own samples, well, why not have those options? And why not just make everything kind of congruent anyway? Just to give you an idea of what everything is doing, so we have humanize, and that's going to give you just a little bit of variance, even not just with your internal samples, but that's going to have variance with any sample that you load in as well. Moving on, we have the filter tracker. We have velocity tracking, so the softer you hit it, the less the volume, and the harder you hit it, the greater the volume. I like to instantiate both of these at the same time a lot of times. I just like the response from it, and I like the sound from it, and, you know, if something's good, do it. All right, so that's that. Distortion, why not? Why not have it? And we have reverb, so you can obviously go to town with all this stuff. And like I said, octave down on a kick drum is overkill, but it's available for you if it's something that you want to use. All right. And we also have key switch reset. So let's say I hate these and I hate everything and I hate myself. Well, key switch reset, just that's your reset. Oh, there is one thing. You'll see if I click on this key here that it turns on and off the humanize feature for all of these drums. Well, the same will be true if I do that for filter, if I want to do that. And that's the second key in the sequence. Same is true if I do velocity. That's the third key in the sequence. So essentially, turning it on loads it into the key switch so that you can use it and perform that key switch if you want. If you're like me, if you use a lot of automation, then you can just click these graphics and it'll populate in the automation. Okay? Or you can do stuff like that. One last thing, actually, and I've forgotten that I did this, but I've set up a key switch to be able to toggle through the pages, just in case you want that workflow. I love this. So, if that's something that you want, great. If that's not something you want, you don't have to use it. These key switches are static. They are stuck here. You can't move them. So, don't even try. Moving on. Let's come back over here. So, one of the ways that you can use distortion and reverb and octave down to your advantage is by using these ADSR controls here. So we have an extra window, so this gives you extra control over attack, hold, decay, sustain, and release. I know it says ADSR, but there's an H in there somewhere. And so if we are playing, you can tailor the sounds to whatever it is that you want them to be with these controls as well. This is a voicing switch, and essentially this turns the hardware on and turns the hardware off. So right now the hardware is on, and this is the API compressor and the SSL compressor and an SSL EQ. I smashed the living hell out of it. And so you get a lot more room. You just get more smash. Watch. Well, you open up the voice, and now it's kind of, you have a little bit more of everything, but you still have the punch. Okay, so that's the voice. We have mapping. You can save your mapping. You can load your mapping. We have plenty of mapping options for you this time around. And if that's not enough, you can save and you can load, and so you can have fun with that. Okay, and this is important for another reason that I'll get to just a little bit later. Let's talk about the tom link. Obviously, the tom link, we're on the drums. This is something that was nice in Deviant drums. It made a return here. If you want all your controls for the toms to move together, well, you put the tom link on. And if you don't want that, well, then so be it. Take it off and do things one by one. The choice is yours. Okay, so here's how MapLink works. If you come down here and you're looking at the mapping, you see the drums. And so this is kick, snare, toms. This is hi-hat, ride, crashes, splashes, chinas. If I click MapLink, you're going to see these go away. Well, what happened? They converged into these. So now you are going to hear all these samples in unison with all these samples. So the kick drum will mirror the hi-hat, the snare drum will mirror the ride, the tom will mirror whatever's here. And you might ask yourself, well, why the heck would you want that? The answer is this. Because once you flip to user zones, you then can start mixing and matching things that you wouldn't have had the ability to mix and match had you only had internal samples that I gave you. And so a lot of what I've done here is try to not only future-proof this instrument, but give you enough flexibility that you can find samples anywhere else and utilize them and have fun with them. And whether that be on Splice or some other drum manufacturers, you made your samples yourself, doesn't matter. Load them in, have fun. So I can take these two samples, I could balance them out, I can tilt them, I can saturate them, I can have fun with the size, and you know what? I'll do a little bit of that right now. So. So I can take the balance down so we're hearing more of this sample than this sample. I can move the tilt up so we're getting more click out of the kick. I can take the size all the way down, and I can tame the release so that we're hearing less of the sample itself, keep the saturation down, and I could even go for humanize. I could go for filter too, but I chose velocity tracking. And so now I could probably just drop this and come over here and say, okay, well, I have this sample here. Let me solo that. Sounds good. Let's come over here and raise the volume on this. So now we have another 2 samples that we can blend in with this sample. It's a pretty good segue. That, if you go up here and you're looking at the snapshots, you go to Deviant ONE, this arrow down here, we've got a bunch of snapshots is what they call them. So we've got Deviant drums stackers. And I went through most presets in Deviant drums and I created what I like to call stackers. So if you're in Deviant drums and you choose the Around the Summer preset, well, you can come into Deviant ONE and you can also choose the Around the Summer preset, and now you can duplicate the MIDI on both the Deviant drums and Deviant ONE channels, assuming you've gone for the Deviant drums mapping, and you will now have a stacked drum sound with Deviant ONE and with Deviant drums for this particular preset, which is really, really, really cool. And I can't wait for you guys to try that because it's a whole new tonality for Deviant drums. But I didn't stop there because we have basic slammers, and these are just things that I felt like putting together so that you could play this instrument and it's fun. You could fire it up and just play some drums on it. Have fun with an instrument, but also have good utility. Of course, we just came out with Deviant drums free, and so why not have some Deviant ONE stackers to go along with it? So there you go. If you guys have the free version, now you can use those as well. And we got the stackers just, okay. We got Abbey Modern, Bad Seals, Deviant drum stacker. Huh. Okay. Godzilla Lives. I'll leave it up to you to, Crime Does Not Pay. I'll leave it up to you to figure out which ones are which. In the playthrough video, I'll make sure to fire up some of these kits and show you the stacked versions before and after, and I think you're going to be really, really impressed by the tonality that you're going to get out of this and the price that you get it for. I'm very, very proud of this. You've also got a master volume. You've got an about that doesn't have a whole lot of information, but it's got some. And we've got a key switch page link that you'll probably never use, but I'll explain it anyway. So, of course, we have 2 pages. If you like the idea of out-clicking and toggling on all of the modifiers all at the same time with 1 click and 1 key press, then that's great. The problem with that is, though, that it's a little bit disorienting to have 2 pages in this instance when you want it to happen on both pages. So the key switch page link, I hope I'm making sense here. If you toggle it on and you alt-click a key switch button, you'll see that if I go over to page 2, now all the filters are on. If I alt-click filter here, these are off, and I go back to page 1, and now all the filters are off as well. And I believe that's the same for key switch reset. If you find that you hit key switch reset and it only did 1 page, well, that's why. And this is just an option for somebody who wants that workflow. You may or may not want this. I may have convoluted things just by adding it, but it's better to have it and not want it than to not have it and need it, right? Is that the phrase? Okay, I think that mostly does it for Deviant ONE. You all are going to get so much out of this instrument. I don't know why you wouldn't buy it. Okay, so I will catch you guys on the next one.